All right, people, let's have a short conversation about visceral fat. I've been doing a lot of research recently because here's something that I've known for a while that most people aren't aware of, which is the simple fact that your body doesn't know how to work against you, right? So there is nothing that your body does to harm your body, right? And that includes what the things termed as autoimmune diseases, right? So that's a whole conversation for another day. Today I want to talk about visceral fat. So some people don't know what visceral fat is. We'll start there. What it is, viscera is like Latin for organs. So the visceral fat is fat that's inside of your abdominal cavity. So it's behind your abs, your obliques, your muscles on your back and whatever. It's in there and it's actually wrapped around the organs, like suet wrapped around kidneys, right? So partly in the case of fat around the kidneys is there for protection against like impact and stuff like that. But it actually has other benefits, like I say, your body doesn't know how to work against you. Cholesterol does not harm you. That's why your liver makes 80% of the stuff that you need. Anyway, back onto the topic. So it's wrapped around your internal organs. And let's be clear, excess visceral fat, and excess is the key word, is strongly associated with over 200 chronic conditions, right? Strongly associated means there's a clear correlation between how much visceral fat you have and how likely you are to get pretty much anything that's really bad for you. Now, that does not mean necessarily that visceral fat causes these issues, okay? But, so that's what it is. Too much of it is bad news. It actually can it causes problems with your insulin, can make you more insulin resistant. It also can release, it creates localized cortisol as well, the stress hormone, but fortunately that doesn't come out into your bloodstream, that remains in the visceral fat cells themselves and tells them to make more visceral fat, okay? But so it can mess up your hormones a bit. But there's key things. So why is it there and what's good about it is the point. So one of the major things is that think about where it is, right? So it's in there, right? It doesn't have to be, so if your body needs energy, it doesn't have to go and get it from, your back, your thighs, your bum, your arms, your whatever, and then it has to travel all the way around your bloodstream to get to where it's needed. Visceral fat around the organs is local, right? It's more metabolically active as well than the subcutaneous fat, your wobbly fat, under your skin fat. But it's local. So, for example, when your body thinks that you may have ingested a poison, one of the things that it does is it activates visceral fat. It starts to generate energy from visceral fat in order to use that energy for the intestines, right, to combat the potential poison for the whole alimentary canal. Okay, and that's why Fix works. That's one of the reasons how Fix works. So it triggers these T2R receptors in the gut, which, you have T2R receptors in your mouth and your lungs and olfactory system, but they're different ones, right? The ones in your mouth say, that's bitter, spit it out, okay? The ones in your gut say, oh no, he's swallowed it, okay? So we need to fix it. So there's a whole kind of cascade of things that happen when your body thinks that you have ingested something bitter. Okay, so that's what the matured hops bitter acids do. They trigger those T2R receptors in the gut. So there's some hormones actually that are released first of all. The message is sent up the vagus nerve, the afferent vagus nerve, to the brainstem that says we may have done this. Your body then reacts saying, okay, what we're going to do temporarily, we're going to slow down digestion, just temporarily. We're going to prevent the stomach contents from emptying, and we're also going to burn some visceral fat so we've got energy for the intestine. So that's one of the reasons why it's there, but you only need a little bit of it. Excess cortisol Okay, there's that C word again, right? The stress hormone. If you are in chronically elevated cortisol, then cortisol actually tells your body to store visceral fat, right? For times of stress, for times of panic, for times of emergency. And so that's another one of the reasons why we don't want to be living in a sympathetic nervous state dominance, because those high stress levels will cause you to store more visceral fat, more toxins, because the visceral fat also stores more toxins than your subcutaneous or intramuscular fat, but it also stores the worst toxins as well. So, you know, anything that's really nasty, that it needs to be sequestered away, right, gets stored in the visceral fat cells, and then so that they can be gradually then released. Now, the problem is, this is the problem. Most people are living in such a high state of stress for most of the time due to modern life, bills, relationships, jobs, blah, 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 you know, that high cortisol tells your body to store visceral fat. So we keep storing it, and it never gets broken down. And that's why, one of the many reasons why living in this sympathetic nervous state is so bad for our health. That's one of the reasons why that over 60% of Americans now have at least one chronic disease, right? That has doubled, I think, in my lifetime. This is going through the roof, guys. Pay attention, right? We have to take back control over our own health. And the best way that you can do that is to spend some time of each day with your parasympathetic nervous system in control. Right, so that's when you take a fix, you squeeze it into your drink, it goes through, hits the small intestine, the T2R receptors, possible poison detected, message goes up the vagus nerve, starts to burn a bit of visceral fat, but then what happens is your body realizes actually there is no real poison threat, because it's done like a quick survey, right? But it always then triggers the parasympathetic state. So it says, right, we are going into healing mode for the next few hours. And, you know, even if you are living a stressful life, which we all are, then you're going to get several hours every time you just squirt this into your drink of being in that mode. So the benefits are incredible, not only activating healing, but targeting that tricky visceral fat. Now, if you're anything like me, my waist was always 32 inches, right? As I was a young man throughout my teens, early 20s, 32 inches. Then it's 36, 38, 40 inches, right? Now, the weird thing is, even when I haven't got so much wobbly fat around here, my torso is still thicker. And you know why that is? It's the visceral fat in my torso, right? So that's something that I'm noticing now going away, and I'm starting to feel that kind of trimness around the middle again, like I used to do when I was a young fella. So there you go. So if you want to know more about Fix, how it works, drop the word more in the comments, and I'll be happy to help.